Sam was 12 years old and late for school. He jumped down the living room stairs 2 at a time, all in training to finally work up the courage to do 3 at a time. Maybe next week. A rabbit's foot keychain attached to Sam's backpack bounced alongside him. Adam was already at school and made it a point of waking up at 5 a.m. in order to fit in some training of his own before first bell. Sam bolted to the kitchen, grabbing a misshapen pastry that Em no doubt intended to be shaped like a cryptid, but might as well have been a duck. Em was the man who adopted both Sam and Adam after the events of the summer of 2021, and he was magic. Only hours after the veil shattered and the world descended into chaos, Em appeared in the town from the northeast, walking alongside US Route 35 and seemingly without a care in the world. Em stood nearly 6 feet 5 inches and was nothing but knots of wiry muscle, like an old tree branch that had weathered too many storms but was all the stronger for it. He was old, but the type of old that is hard to pinpoint, as his gray hair and age spots were fiercely contrasted by sharp blue eyes and the unnaturally smooth skin. All the more reason why he looked ridiculous in an apron. Em, with all that magic, you still can't bake a cryptic croissant without burning it. That's a really odd way of saying thank you, Sam. Now get to school, Em shouted as dishes danced across the kitchen cleaning themselves, or attempted to. Sam wasn't a particularly huge fan of Em using magic, but he wouldn't say no to a hot, if slightly singed, breakfast. Every day on his way to school, Sam passed the same fence that bordered Mrs. Chappell's garden, and every day Sam tried to spot the differences that decorated it. Every day the fence had different posters and ads and graffiti on it that were a reflection of the new world that they all lived in. Sam was a collector, and specifically a collector of all things cryptid, so if anything was easily removable and portable in his backpack, he made a mental note to do his public duty to reduce littering on his way back home. Just at the entrance of school, Sam spotted Adam at the center of a group of other students, some as old as 18. Adam stood straight with his left arm perpendicular to his body and his spellbook in his right hand. At his feet, a terrified jackalope was magically bound to the ground in an intricate sigil glowing with a soft blue hue.
And so you see, you don't actually need the cryptid's cooperation to form a contract with it. All you need to do is incapacitate it,
Adam explained to his group of fans to many ahs and oohs.
Of course, the sigil is just a placeholder. I hear that the most powerful casters can form contracts with willpower alone,
Adam says as he extended a hand with flourish, snapped his fingers, and produced a brief shower of multicolored sparks, to many more ahs and oohs much louder than before. Adam then made the jackalope hop onto its hind legs and dance, much to the merriment of those surrounding him. Searing pain and terror were apparent in the jackalope's eyes. Sam didn't need to say anything, and through their strange connection made all the stronger since the veil shattered, Adam knew it was time to end the demonstration. With a snap of his spellbook, the sigil disappeared and the jackalope hopped off into the forest, not before goring one of the seniors' prized Dodge Challenger's wheels. The crowd dispersed, making eye contact with Sam and shooting daggers at him, knowing that he was somehow the cause of the abrupt end of the morning's fun, like he always was. As the sea of students made their way to the entrance of the school before the first bell, Adam caught up to Sam with a huff. With a little too much excitement, Adam said,
Sam, I get it. You don't like the magic, and you especially don't like it when I use it on a beastie. But I'm really good at it, and you could be too if you just trained a little.
A brief pause for effect, and then Sam responded,
It's bad, Adam. It killed our parents and everyone we knew, but it didn't kill us. And you just use it like it's nothing, like there's nothing wrong with it. Sam, the magic, it's just magic. It's no big deal. I'm creating stuff, pretty sparks, and some of the spells are actually really cool. And in fact, I think I found out how to do some stuff I don't even think Em knows how to do. Besides, most people agree that the beasties are to blame for this.
Adam, just stop, please. We're going to be late, Sam interrupted. Adam stopped in the hallway they had entered moments before to look at Sam's back as he walked away, and the sea of students parted before him. Sam was 16 years old, and he had a bloody lip outside by the fence of Mrs. Chappell's garden. Above him, a poster of Hero battling the latest artist's rendition of the mythical Piazza bird exploded in full color. Hero was Unity City's newly established and sanctioned hero, but Sam thought he looked and powers were more like a cheap knockoff of Superman. Maybe that's what the propaganda goons in UC were going for, though. A blow to the back of Sam's head made his own vision explode in full color. Sam was unsure whether the blow came from one of the 3 seniors that surrounded him, spellbooks open and at the ready, or the rather mean-looking river dino they had contracted. Not that it mattered. Every day for the past several months, these same 3 would catch Sam on his way to school and give him what they believed to be a well-deserved beating, and every day Sam took it without complaint. He knew all he had to do was wake up earlier, perhaps even as early as Adam, and the beatings would stop as a matter of inconvenience to his bullies. But in Sam's mind, that would be tantamount to admitting defeat. "Come on, cast a spell, you freak," said Andy with a sneer not made any better by his hair lip. "You know, Andy, fixing that axe wound on your face would only need a slightly advanced cosmetic spell. Or can't you cast those? Not enough juice in the tank?" Sam bubbled through his own split face. Sam always gave it back in his own way, and the spells he cast were often white-hot cruelty. Sam knew Andy lacked the magic necessary to fix his hair lip, and by proxy Sam knew everyone in Andy's family lacked the necessary skills as well. Andy's eyes widened and his pupil sharpened to a point. The river dino's face twitched in unison, and with a great leap it pounced into Sam's chest, digging its claws into white flesh as it did so. It was only the size and weight of a medium-sized dog, but the momentum it carried threw Sam onto the asphalt with a wet smack. As pain exploded into Sam's body from 1,000 different places, all he could do was focus on a singular point on the river dino's forehead. It was Andy's sigil, burned deep red into the flesh and making the one responsible for his pain impossible to deny. This was one of the downfalls of contracting a beastie for those of us with criminal inclinations. It always left the mark of the caster somewhere. Sam wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in Unity City, perhaps in a darkened basement where only mushrooms and secrets grow, a database of casters' sigils were kept on file as a fingerprinting system. Indeed, many dark casters had taken up the habit of carving nonsense sigils into whatever beasties they contracted to remove any culpability, and not a few people had been framed for crimes that they didn't commit as a result. "Easy, Andy, you're going to kill him," the leader of this merry band, Stefan, said, with an all-too-easy chuckle. Stefan was a hulking Bulgarian who had hit puberty perhaps a little too soon, and he had also once been Sam's friend, before the shattering of the veil, that is. Sam remembered Stefan once telling him that Bulgaria was really well known for curling. It struck Sam as odd at the time that an entire country would be known for a single weightlifting exercise, but there are certainly stranger things in the world now, especially now. Stefan knelt by Sam's struggling body and put a hand on the river dino's snout, muffling its snarls. "You know, you sure do talk a lot of shit for someone who doesn't use magic, Sam. Every morning we come here to educate you, but every morning you just get stupider and stupider," Stefan said with a type of condescension that almost came off as sympathetic. "We just want you to cast one little spell. We know you can do it. You have such a hard-on for these beasties that killed our friends and family, but something against using magic? Help me understand." Stefan propped his spellbook on his knee and flipped to a bookmarked page. A moment of concentration, and then a tiny fire wisp the size of a lit candle's flame appeared at the tip of Sam's nose. Sam muffled his own cries. After all, Mrs. Chapel was his next-door neighbor, and Sam made every effort to hide his daily torment from his family. His first stop after the morning meetings was always a magical emergency clinic, MEC, just outside of his school that specializes in superficial cuts, bruises, and burns, often magical in nature. And why were these kids so cruel? Cruel in a way we all experience in our youth but soon forget. Cruel in a way that only children can be. Sam could use magic, yes, but he chose not to. This was seen as not only odd behavior, but it verged on the sacrilegious in the New World Order. It wasn't helped by the fact that everyone in town knew that Sam and Adam were the only survivors of that fated baseball game 8 years ago, where so many of their friends and family had perished. Sure, millions of people died that day, all over the world.
But the fact that they were all sole survivors of that particular local incident rubbed the local people the wrong way. And Sam was still paying for it, and paying for it gladly. And while most of the world had learned to adapt to the reality of Cryptid Nation, as the U.S. had become known to be called, the residents of Point Pleasant never truly understood why Adam loved cryptids the way he did. The cruelty wasn't limited to the town's children. The adults actively but more subtly and perhaps unknowingly participated as well. The C on an exam instead of the earned B+. Stale bread instead of the fresh batch when he went to Piggly Wiggly on 3rd Street. Bus doors that closed just a little too soon as Sam ran to catch them. Cruelty by 1,000 cuts, but such a consistent slow burn of cruelty was enough to leave any child feeling unloved. Of course, no such cruelty met Adam, the star child of Point Pleasant. His survival 8 years ago was overlooked by his adoring fans, child, teen, and adult alike. After all, who could hate the wonder kid that crushed every standardized test thrown at him, was the captain of at least 3 different sports, and could cast magic that left even a most adept adult caster in awe? Or perhaps they were simply afraid of him, because if you could only choose one word to describe Adam, most people would choose powerful. Just as the river dino began digging its claws a little too deeply into Sam's chest, just as Sam's ability to control his screams disappeared, the river dino began to float in the air as though it were in an underwater waltz. In a panic, it briefly tried to find purchase in Sam's flesh, and Sam let out the first scream of the morning. A shadow was cast on Sam, and all 3 bullies took a step back before they could catch themselves. Adam was not a large teen by any means. In fact, in comparison to hormone-riddled bullies that stood before him, you might even describe him as frail. But there was a gravity by the way Adam held himself that was undeniably striking. Jet black hair, glasses a little too reminiscent of Harry Potter to be entirely by accident, and a casual suit and red tie that had once earned him the attention of bullies himself before they learned better, all added to the effect. The bully's surprise wasn't unwarranted either. It was a well-known fact that since the veil shattered, Adam had always arrived several hours early to school. It was his thing. What he was doing all the way back home only 30 minutes before first bell had Sam even more confused than Stefan and his merry crew. "Oh, crap!" squeaked Andy in a pitch that Sam had never heard. Stefan, the most experienced and sure of the crew, slid back to put some distance between him and the figure that had seemingly appeared out of nowhere.
"Don't be pansies! Get him before he has a chance to pull out his spell book!"
roared Stefan while rapidly flipping through the pages of his own so hard they almost tore. Sam was so distracted by the river dino drowning midair above him, now floating a solid 25 feet in the air like the world's most grotesque balloon animal, that he had almost forgot to cover his face and vitals in preparation for the chaos that was about to ensue.